As part of our ongoing positive mental health series this morning, we're going to take a look at schizophrenia. Our reporter Aisling Reardon went out to meet Paul, who is currently in recovery.
Every move in chess has a name, depending on where they go in the first, say, 4 or 5 moves. This one's from a game called the Italian.
Teaching me some of the basics. Paul Levy from Tala loves chess and has been playing it since he was a child. However, there was a time when he couldn't do what he does best after he became unwell with schizophrenia.
Yeah, it was the age of 17. I was working in a pharmaceutical factory near home, and just a guy there started to bully me. He led me to become paranoid and kind of just a bit suspicious, and thought he was getting gangs after me. So it stressed me out to the stage that I was back home in the community. I was getting paranoid and thought people were kind of coming after me, and that was a kind of a very stressful situation for me.
And to you, what is schizophrenia?
Yeah, schizophrenia is made up of two sides. It says positive and negative symptoms. The positive symptoms would be things like paranoia, delusions, hallucinations, stuff like that. And then the negative symptoms would be more kind of a little bit further down the line when you've got through them stages. It would be like depression, withdrawal from society, just lack of emotions and interest in things. But I think people have a misperception in the public that schizophrenia is a multi-personality disorder, which is not true. But I think if people just get that idea, because when people are unwell with schizophrenia, they look like they have different personalities. Like they're scared one minute, they're happy one minute, they're paranoid the next minute. So I think that's where that perception comes from.
Some people may hear voices as part of the illness, and although Paul, who's now 31 years old, hasn't heard them in 6 years, he does remember what it was like.
Not everybody with schizophrenia just saying hears voices, but I did, and it's kind of, I couldn't explain them when I had them at 17. I couldn't explain where they're coming from, what was going on. It was kind of a confusing time. It's kind of like they'd be up close and then they'd be at a distance, and you couldn't explain where they're coming from, because you could be in the middle of a field and you'd be still hearing voices kind of thing. And you'd be in the house and you'd be thinking people on the radio talking to you, on the TV talking to you, and they're almost, they know things about you personally almost, but I think it's your own subconscious working against yourself. And how did people react to your condition? The guy I went to school with, I was on the bus going to work one day, and he just chatting away, and actually out of the blue he just says, it's someone who's really close at school, he says, "You're a schizo of the road, aren't you?" And I said, "Sorry." And it kind of knocked me back a bit, like, and there is negative reactions to people in society. I think it's due to lack of education and just sometimes plain ignorance, that people don't understand what people are going through and just don't want to know really, you know. So how do you manage to keep yourself healthy and happy? I keep myself healthy by playing football. I play a lot of football, play Astro football 5-a-side 3 days a week. I play a bit of ball on the weekends and stuff like that. I go to the gym, and I do always believe in healthy body, healthy mind, but I'm only seeing it now because I actually have got a healthier body. I've lost a couple of stone and stuff like that, and I'm feeling better for it. Tell me about your chess. Yeah, the chess now, I love the chess. Like I'm playing chess since I'm 12 years old, and I'm teaching chess the last 12 years. So I run my own little chess club, and I teach in different schools during the week, and really enjoy it now. I like to, even with the mental health things, my experience, I like to help other people that would need that. So the chess, I like to think kids that I'd have a lot of experience to teach them and learn their moves. And how do you think the stigma can be broken down? Yeah, just I know about mental health in general. The likes of people in the public eye would have come out and said they have depression, like, you know, Leah Lennon, Noel Quinn, Daisy Farrell openly wrote books and experience they've had with depression. You would have had celebrities going around saying they have bipolar openly. But I think to me coming from someone that has schizophrenia, I've never really seen a celebrity saying, "I have a diagnosis of schizophrenia," and it's back to the whole, are they ashamed of it, or they don't know? Like 1 in 100 people have schizophrenia, so there's obviously going to be a few of them out there that have it. It's just like, it's the whole taboo about schizophrenia, so I think that has to change if some celebrity did stand out there and say. And what advice would you give to people sitting at home that might feel unwell? Yeah, well, my overall advice for mental health and thinking in general for me would be a couple of do's and don'ts. Do things that make you happy, do things that make you smile, do hobbies, activities, whether it's reading a book, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's playing football, chess like I do. Do things that make you happy, and I'm saying put a smile on your face. And then another one would be stay around people that make you happy, and you're comfortable being around, and you're not stressed out around and stuff like that, because that's a big part of it. And then the opposite, the flip side of that is the two don'ts. Don't do things that you don't enjoy and put you down, and like you're not going to get something out And then the whole thing with the don'ts of the people is don't be around people that stress you out or put you down and stuff like that. So there, I would say two do's and two don'ts.
That was Paul Levy speaking to our reporter Aisling Reardon. Well, I'm joined now by John Saunders, Director of Shine, and from Limerick by Brian Hartnett of the Hearing Voices Network. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us this morning. Brian, I'll go to you first of all. I mean, 1 in 100 people in Ireland suffer from schizophrenia. It's a very high ratio, and yet it is a condition that we have quite a low understanding of.
Well, I suppose it doesn't really get enough open debate or conversation about it. It's still seen as being something to be feared and not talked about, similar to like what a lot of mental illness would have been seen in the past, So it's just that it hasn't really had people come out and say, I have schizophrenia and, I'm getting on with my life and I'm not necessarily a danger to myself or anybody else or, anything like that. So I think it's just getting opportunities like this to talk about it openly, I think, is what really needs to happen more, And
Brian, can you tell me your own network there, the Hearing Voices Network, how did you set that up, or how did you come to set that up?
Well, basically, I just set up a website, voicesireland.com, and the whole intention was to get a debate going and get some attention drawn to it. I had been to the UK to meet people over there who had started a network for people who hear voices in the UK, and that has broadened out now throughout the world. There are annual meetings and conferences and things like that of just specifically about voice hearing, which is my own experience as well of schizophrenia. We set up this website.
When did you develop the condition yourself, Brian? I mean, can you tell us about when you realised you were suffering from schizophrenia?
Well, it actually took a while for me to realise that I had a mental illness. Basically, it seemed like a kind of a spiritual experience to me at first because of the voices and things like that. And for quite some time, I didn't really talk about it very much or didn't seek help. But eventually I realised that I did need help, and I went to a psychiatrist and I was given medication, which does definitely help,
Yeah, and how are you doing now?
I'm doing good now. It was back in the early 90s really that I was kind of unwell. These days I just get on with my life more or less as normal. I did work for a while in the area of mental health and stuff like that as well with the Advocacy Network, and you can get on with your life. I mean, it's an important message to get across that schizophrenia doesn't necessarily mean, the end of the road for you or whatever. You can actually recover and go on to, to thrive in life and be successful,
Thanks very much, Brian. John, to bring you in, I mean, schizophrenia, of all of the mental conditions, it is the one that kind of in popular opinion or imagination is associated with violence, is associated with split personalities. I mean, are these things all myth or is there any truth to them?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a condition which carries all the myths, I think. It's the last great taboo around mental ill health, and I think but Brian and Paul have outlined the serious issues around the fact that there's gross misconceptions about the fact that if you have schizophrenia, for example, it's a lifelong sentence, that you could never recover, that it's going some way damage or cause aggression in people. The truth is so very different, and again we have Paul and Brian testifying to that today, that you can actually overcome what is a very, very serious mental health problem. You can find some quality of life, you can get back on the road, and that's what it's about.
And John, can I ask you, has there been any more research as to what is causing schizophrenia?
It's one of those great unknowns. I think that no one can actually stand up and say what are the causes. We do know, for example, that it is familial, that sometimes it occurs more than average in the family.
So there's a genetic component?
So there's some genetic component, but that genetic component is very unclear. We also know that some people seem to be more vulnerable to it, and therefore
who is more vulnerable? Are there life circumstances that make you more vulnerable to it?
Well, I think people who don't respond to stress well, perhaps. Sometimes we do know, for example, that people who engage in very, very heavy use of cannabis, drugs particularly,
yeah, that is a growing issue, isn't it?
There is a huge issue around drug-induced psychosis, as it's called, and sometimes the research has shown today that if you have a vulnerability to psychosis or schizophrenia and you heavily engage in cannabis use, you're more likely to develop the condition. than any other person. So it is a real issue. But I suppose at the end of the day, it's one of those mysterious conditions we don't understand too well. But what we do understand more and more is how to respond to it. And both Paul and Brian outlined, for example, that we can use medication to deal with some of the positive symptoms, the voices, the delusions, the disorganized thinking. The negative symptoms that Paul talked about are a bit more difficult, but they can be dealt with by behavioural management, by helping the person to understand what's happening and where he is, and giving him some support to actually find the way to support himself and to make that journey to recovery.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you both very much indeed for coming in this morning. And we are going to put up a number of helplines which are available. The Shine information line is 1890 621 631 and the Samaritans are on 1850 60 90 90.